Thank you so much. Good morning, and I do want to start with some thank yous. First to Marta for saying all those lovely things about some person I've not met yet, but that's awesome. To the IIDA Illinois chapter for hosting this celebration, to the selection committee for your faith in me, and to all of you who have gathered here on what is probably the gnarliest day we've had in a long time. So at this ungodly hour and in this ungodly weather, I appreciate it. This is really a tremendous honor, and I'm still not certain I deserve it or they've gotten their paperwork right here, but it's very humbling, and I'm deeply grateful for the recognition. Thanks to all of you. We've got a great keynote speaker who I met last night, Jessica Matthews, so buckle up, it's going to be a good one. She's really exciting, so that's going to be fun. But I have a few minutes to talk, and since this is a leadership breakfast, I wanted to focus on the topic of leadership. So stick with me while I fly through my presentation. I'll bang through it as quick as I can. They said the green button is go, so here we go. Okay, it all started, that's not me. It all started for me in 1953 when these two started dating, and they got married in 1955. And by the time my dad finished his degree, he had 3 kids, including me. I'm the last day I was the tallest person in my family. I had a classic 1960s childhood before embarking on my own circuitous path through grade school, and then through high school, and then through architecture school. And then finally through graduate school. And I started work then in the 1980s, if you can look at that little Nazi. Then in 1991, I was part of a group that founded a firm called the Environments Group. And we had a great team, and we had a pretty good run. We ran that firm for about 17 years and grew it to a pretty good size before being acquired and merged with Perkins & Will, where we've all been since then. Along the way, I've learned a little bit about leadership, and I'd like to take this opportunity to share some of these lessons. And my first lesson on leadership is that I reject it. Or better said, I reject the notion that leadership is based in your DNA and that it's somehow brought to fruition through heroic effort and through heroic action and singular vision. I think that makes a good movie, but I don't think that's how leadership really occurs. Instead, I think the universe is offering us leadership lessons every day, and that a real leader is one who recognizes and learns from these lessons and then leverages those in his or her everyday life. When I was a kid, I was a handful, to say the least. I was what you would call today creative, but in those days, in a 1960s Catholic school, I was called trouble. And I was pretty well down that road when these two people entered my life. One is my 6th grade teacher, Sister Mary Barbara, and the other is my soccer coach, Mr. Noland. And these were the first people outside my nuclear family to show any faith in me. They took me and put me in the front row of the classroom and put me in the starting 11 on the soccer field. And they told me I was good, and they told me I had an important job to do to help the team. And that message was encouraging and ennobling, and their respect was paid back tenfold. And you might think that a kid wouldn't notice or remember, but here I am talking about it 50 years later. Their leadership lesson is one to embrace and empower people, including the one judged least likely. Remember these two? They taught me more than anyone, so it's very hard to narrow it down to a single leadership lesson for each, but I'll try. My mom, now long since deceased, was a brilliant woman, and I loved her with all my heart. But she was Italian through and through, which meant she was either laughing, crying, singing, or screaming. And while that may sound chaotic, it showed that she reasoned with her heart. She allowed her emotions to shine through. Her lesson is to lead with love. It's simply love, it's always love, it's only love. And as a leader, if you act from a place of love, those around you will feel it and remember it. Then there's my dad, who is now almost 87 years old and who's with us here today. Poppy. My dad was as analytical as my mom was emotional. As a kid, and to this day, I idolized him, and his actions did more to affect my development as a man than anyone. In his professional life, he's a pharmacist and an entrepreneur, and his lesson is risk tolerance. When he quit his job to start out on his own, he drained every penny he had, including borrowing from our childhood savings accounts, to start his own company. It all worked out. He paid his kids back, and he built a successful pharmacy practice, buying 10 stores in the process. His leadership lesson: you can't score if you don't shoot, so take a risk. Two other great teachers of mine were, in fact, teachers, in this case, college professors. One is Richard Longstreth, my architectural history professor, and the person who showed me the value of true scholarship. He's a nationally recognized historian and a prolific writer and researcher, and I can honestly say I've never met any person in any job as dedicated to his or her work as Richard is. His lesson is to pursue your passion with your whole heart. Ron Phillips taught design studio and environment behavior research, but what he really taught me was a key life lesson: to face issues analytically, but to consider every possible solution, including the absurd. His philosophy of aggressively challenging the status quo appealed to the rebel in me, and his mentorship shaped my worldview as much as any. He was the one that taught me to skate on the other side of the ice. His lesson: question everything. These two are great teachers, are not actually teachers, but they're my partners, Peter Scholl and Gina Barrett. Peter is retired from our business now, but his design style is legendary, as many in this room can attest. He's the man for whom the word impeccable was invented. And although he's a bit older than me, he's still the hippest guy I know. He's also the least didactic person I know. He makes no overt attempt to teach anybody about anything. And yet, he's taught me so much about people and design and the world in general. His lesson is that a real leader leads by example. My partner Gina has also taught me volumes. She's a great businesswoman, a mom, and a leader, and a recipient of the same honor from the IIDA. And we've worked together since 1987, and I could tell 1,000 stories about her skills, but one gift shines through for me. In sticky managerial situations, with nuanced issues and where there's no logical precedent, I've seen Gina act from a place of clarity and strength. Her leadership lesson is that above all, a leader must be guided by a personal code of moral and ethical beliefs. Other leadership lessons I've learned come from my brother and sister. Both are highly educated and both are much smarter than me, but they operate with opposing strategies. My brother leads his business and his life by focusing only on the big picture. He does not sweat the small stuff. My sister, on the other hand, leads by worrying about every single detail of her projects, and I mean every one. They are both correct, and they teach us together an important lesson. As a leader, you must know when to step in and when to step back. These two guys have enjoyed successful careers based on two words. My friend Gary McCunis has made a career out of the word why. As a design strategist, he is constantly searching for the logic and the proof to derive a decision. And in his own polite and professional way, he'll prod you with the question why until you've answered it for him and for yourself. His leadership lesson is always ask why. For Tom Kasnia, yes is the word. He is the most upbeat and resourceful architect and leader you'll ever meet. When faced with obstacles that others find daunting, Tom says yes first and then finds a way to make it work later. That is not a simple task, but he always makes it happen. Tom's lesson: stay positive. You will likely recognize both of these next leaders: Cheryl Durst, the CEO of IIDA, and Raj Gupta, the CEO of ESD Engineering. Both are the senior-most leaders of global enterprises and might logically be expected to be full of ego. And yet nothing could be further from the truth. Besides their many accomplishments, they're both remarkable to me for their open and generous personalities, for their flawless etiquette in every situation. A true lady and a true gentleman, their lesson is clear: grace is power. These next four gents are all important figures in my life, and they all come from different realms. One is my brother-in-law, Bill Casperson. He's a chief of surgery, bluegrass musician, and wine connoisseur. The next guy's Kevin Young, a partner in the mergers and acquisitions practice of a major law firm, and who long ago played forward on the state championship basketball team. The next is Murali Selvaraj, who I hired right out of graduate school and who went by me going about 600 miles an hour. He now serves as the Chief Information Officer of Perkins & Will. The final chap is my childhood best friend, Kevin Conley, a mechanical engineer who's worked all over the world designing fuel systems for fighter jets. These are the very smartest people I know. And so it should be obvious that I have lots to learn from them. But the thing that makes them so impressive to me is not their IQ, but their manner. They're all completely respectful, deferential, and polite people. And that, more than their accomplishments, is the leadership lesson. The smartest person in the room does not need to act like that. Be humble. Mary Baker and Christine Dansereau are knowledge managers that I work with every day. And although they are much younger than me and report directly to me, I don't teach them, they teach me. Beyond their deep knowledge of the subject matter of our work, they amaze me with all they know about history, literature, politics, pop culture, culinary trends, travel tips. Their leadership lesson: put some real effort into getting informed and don't stop. Stay current. Here's my friend Marta Stein, who introduced me today. She achieved the level of senior partner in a major law firm before starting her own practice. Marta is the sweetest and kindest friend you could ask for. But she's also a very tenacious litigator. Among our friends, her nickname is the Pit Bull with High Heels. Her lesson is to be kind, but be tough. Bill Berger, on the other hand, is our firm's director of operations. Because of his job, he often has to make tough decisions, and he does so with conviction. But Bill is also a family man and knows how to temper the realities of his job with a bit of human compassion. His lesson is be tough, but be kind. Everyone in this room is in the customer service business in one way or another, but we could all benefit by learning a bit from these two. Judy Mitchell was my partner for many years and now runs a small residential practice. When she was with our team, she led our firm's biggest accounts, quietly, effectively, and with no appetite for recognition. She's joined on screen by my friend Raymond Davis, who I met over 20 years ago when he was managing a sandwich shop that I stopped in every morning. We hired him to run our office services function, and today he takes care of 300 crybabies on a daily basis. The confidence that these two give to their customers and to their colleagues is invaluable. Their lesson is to put the customer first, and everything else will take care of itself. These two kiddos are my niece and nephew, Andrew and Sarah Casperson, and they're here to teach us about patience. They're now 32 and 28 years old, respectively, and successful in their own careers, but in a bit of reverse mentoring, they are now my guide to many new things: music, technology, restaurants, and the modern world in general. It would be easy for them to be dismissive of me, their semi-out-of-it uncle, but they aren't. Their leadership lesson is this: if you want to lead, you have to teach, and if you want to teach, you have to be patient. I've worked with my friend Mauricio Correa and traveled the world with him as well. I was best man at his wedding and godfather to his son, but his most enduring leadership lesson was taught to me and all of his teammates on the soccer field as he called out to us, "Don't give up." Don't ever stop, no matter the hardships and no matter what kind of fix you're in. It's a simple but very important lesson. Don't ever give up. And in a profession that's built on tons of hard work, my partner Mike Reinhardt stands out above others. His lesson is not just to work hard, but instead to humble yourself to the work. That doesn't mean humble yourself to a person or an institution, but whether you're digging a ditch or designing a corporate headquarters, practice the fundamentals, master the tools, and do the work to the best of your ability. His lesson: embrace the work. These are two more of my partners, and both are design principals. I've worked with them for a total of over 50 years, and I've learned a few things along the way, but I can distill their leadership into just a few words. For Tim, the leadership lesson is that design is a team sport. Because the team is stronger and better than any one person, we honor the individual, but we celebrate only the team. Joe Connell's been doing this as long as I have, but he's maintained the energy and intellectual engagement of a fresh graduate. To this day, he amazes me with his wide-ranging knowledge base. His lesson: stay curious. And then, of course, there are these two. My wife, Mary, and my son, James. I met Mary 34 years ago on her first day of architecture school, and we have been together ever since. And although she's a little younger than me, she's taught me plenty, and perhaps more than I care to admit. In an increasingly cynical world, she is able to see the light in others and to give them the benefit of the doubt. Her leadership lesson is one that she has stated to me over and over: operate with trusting intentions. My son James is only 14, but he's taught me plenty too. And his primary lesson is one I don't think he's even aware of. What I see in James and his peers is an absolute clarity around the topic of equality. Gender, race, identity are all just part of the fabric of the world, like geography or the weather. It's not something that has to be learned or unlearned, it just is. His worldview has a purity that I know he'll be able to sustain. I give all the credit in the world to him and his generation, and I ask them to keep it going. His lesson? Stay woke. And finally, there's me. I have tried to leverage the leadership lessons from all around me and to add to it one more ingredient, and that's a little bit of levity. Of course, we all deal with important matters all the time, and I think I've learned when the situation requires me to be serious. However, I also know that a little humor can lighten the moment or illuminate a point in a way that is non-threatening. Too many in our world take themselves so seriously that they miss the opportunity to use a shared chuckle to build connections with people, and that's a real pity. My lesson? Laugh a little. Hopefully you can see I've drawn important lessons from the people all around me. I'm not saying I've mastered these lessons, but I'm trying. These same leadership lessons and more exist in the people around you, and I challenge you to open your eyes and ears and heart, learn from them, and then pay it forward with your own brand of leadership. I'd like to close in the same way I opened, with some thank yous. Thank you to all the special people I featured here today for the many lessons you've given me. I extend the same thanks to the dozens of others that I was not able to mention, many of whom are in this room. Thanks to all the people I've ever worked for, thanks to all the people I've ever worked with, and thanks even to those I've worked against. Our town is filled with great competitors, and I've learned from you too. I appreciate everyone's time today, and I wish you all every blessing on your journey. Thank you.